Hello, my name's Ed, a junior doctor over in the UK, and today we're going to do another Scrubs reaction video. This one, slightly Halloween inspired. It's called My Big Brother.
This one. You want to get a clear shower curtain? Why don't you just nude up in the living room and you can spray me down with a hose?
Dude, if you're gonna be that self-conscious, I could always doodle in chest hairs right about where you'd stand.
I have a chest hair. I named him Clancy. Dr. Cox is my big brother Dan. He just showed up unexpected.
4 minutes and 44 seconds.
Whoa, easy there, Chief. Why don't we have one of those nurses there for you? Big tall glass of calm down juice.
Dan.
Not a good way to talk to Dr. Cox. Despite this episode being, 20 years old, we still use pages like this. And Bleep Rage that Dr. Cox has here is definitely a thing, specifically when someone doesn't answer a bleep because you don't know how long to wait until you bleep again. And then sometimes if it's been a while, you have to do the dreaded double bleep, thinking they may have forgotten, only to find out the person you're bleeping is, attending a cardiac arrest or doing emergency surgery. And then you just feel awful because you feel like you've contributed to the stress. However, in JD's case, we saw he was just chatting with friends, so no excuse there.
Room 310's test came back negative. I thought you might want to give me the good news.
Let me do it.
What?
I can totally be a doctor.
I can't let you tell him.
I won't call you Bambi anymore.
It's bizarre enough that he's got one of his family members at work, let alone this saga.
Touch and go there for a while. You're a fighter. You pulled through. We're gonna get you out of here today, but I'd like you to keep an eye on those Rickells.
Rickells is my last name.
I mean, he was unlucky there because Rickells does sound a bit like Ricketts, so that's probably where the confusion arises from. I like the dramatic pacing. I hope none of us do that.
I appreciate everything you did for my husband. The funeral's tomorrow, and I'd love it if you could attend.
Unfortunately, I'm in surgery all day. Still, I'm sorry for your loss.
Dodging.
This actually happens. I would say, though, it's pretty rare in a hospital setting to be invited to a funeral, but perhaps a family doctor, so a GP, may attend if they know the patient well. In my experience, when I worked as a doctor in a hospice, we'd frequently be invited by the family to attend.
God, I hate Halloween.
Somebody needs to adjust their attitude if they want some candy.
You mean the popcorn balls and the deformed lollipops? I mean, honestly, where do you get this crap anyway?
I made it.
Yeah, we're not actually supposed to have snacks and food on the wards, but it did happen. I say did happen because ever since the pandemic hit, people have been a lot more hot on this type of thing.
Dr. Cox, your intern asked for a surgical consult on Mr. Carney.
Yeah.
I suggest we do a fempop bypass.
Mr. Carney's a frail old man who'd probably snap in half from a light sponge bath.
All I'm saying is if we do so...
Snap in half from a light sponge bath. I do love Scrubs because as much as Dr. Cox is being flippant, to say the least, super important principle of medicine here. The risk versus benefit for a procedure is not a fixed thing. You have to consider the individual. Is the patient even going to be able to survive the operation? And if they do, are they going to be able to recover from it? And also, what is the patient's baseline? So are they going to get a huge benefit? Are they going to get an improvement to how they are at the moment?
The guy's 1,000. What's he gonna take a steamer over to Europe, open up a cafe, and finally meet that 900-year-old girl of his dreams?
I made my recommendation.
You stood up for what you believe in, and I respect that. Thank you. $20 says you kill him.
You're on.
It was going so well. Oh dear. Yeah, although I agree with what he was saying, I should be putting a bet on someone's life.
Finally, can anyone tell me the dermatologic condition associated with Rhinophyma, Dr.
Ooh.
Murphy?
Rhinophyma. So this is a permanent lumpy swelling deformity of the nose, which was traditionally thought to be caused by alcoholism, but this has actually turned out not to be true, although alcohol abuse can make it worse. And it's actually linked to the skin condition rosacea, so a chronic skin condition that causes redness on the face. Having said that, let's see if we're right.
Could it be psoriasis?
And yet further proof that the clown costume is redundant. Now, if any of you are...
What? They never tell us the answer. It's not a bad guess from Dr. Murphy. Ironically though, rosacea usually causes redness on the cheeks at first, which he should have just looked in the mirror to get a hint. And I'm guessing there's a bit of a nod to Rhinophyma being a swollen nose, the fact he's got one of these comedy noses on.
Now, if any of you other would-be revelers get the urge to dress up on this, the mother of all non-holidays, please consider me the razor blade in your caramel apple. We're professionals, damn it.
Love him or hate him, Dr. Kelso is absolutely right. And I have seen it happen, not as extreme as seen in this episode, but when I was on a medical ward, a few of the staff wore devil horns for Halloween, similar to the cat ears that Dr. Kelso threw off here. And after a couple of hours, they were asked to remove them, but in a much nicer way than we see here. And it makes sense, doesn't it, right? Imagine if you've come into hospital unconscious and you wake up surrounded by people who have got devil horns on. You know, worst case scenario, you might think you've died and woken up in the underworld.
Stable condition. What time is it? Time to dance. Come on. Ready? Come on. Bring it back. Come on. Whoop. Pay the man.
It's a bit of an early celebration. It's a great celebration, but a bit early. The patient's not out the woods yet. We categorize complications from surgery as either being specific to that particular one or general, so it can happen during any surgery. Furthermore, we can think of the timings of the complications. So ones that happen during surgery, so complications of the general anesthetic, or bleeding, or damage to structures. So Turk's celebrating here because essentially we're out of this phase. But there's also many post-operative complications. For example, bleeding again, lung collapse, what we call atelectasis, DVT, and infection, and others. And given the fact Dr. Cox said this patient is like 1,000 years old and wouldn't survive a sponge bath, the risk of these complications would be much, much higher. So, as we said, not out the woods yet.
Y'all get nice and cozy up in my wallet.
Now, before you get too awful high up on your horse there, Tonto, I feel it's my duty to remind you of just a little something. See, you just made a $20 bet on whether a fellow human being would live or die. Now tell me, just exactly how's that make you feel, Mr. Sensitive?
Dr. Cox has a very good point. You do develop a dark sense of humour working in healthcare, although gambling on a patient's life, that's clearly stepping over the mark. Turk's obviously got a bit carried away, didn't mean any malice by it, but if you got found out for this type of thing, you would be in a lot of trouble, whether it's a joke or not.
You see Dr. Wen in there? He's explaining to that family that something went wrong and that the patient died. He's going to tell them what happened, he's going to say he's sorry, and then he's going back to work. You think anybody else in that room's going back to work today? That is why we distance ourselves. That's why we make jokes.
Wow. I hadn't really ever thought that the idea is anyone going back to work that day. It totally makes sense. When patients come into hospital, it's generally the most stressful, scary, feeling out of control that they'll have in their whole life. And if you take on board those emotions with them, it's just going to cripple you in terms of making decisions. And also, you couldn't live at that emotional level in your day-to-day work. So actually, you'll be surprised that on the hospital wards, as we see in Scrubs, and I think this is why Scrubs is considered to be such an accurate reflection of the medical profession, is that it's very much like a friendly atmosphere you have with your colleagues, and you're making jokes, and some of them are quite dark jokes. As Dr. Cox says, they can be a good coping mechanism that if you heard what we said outside of the hospital, it'd sound really insensitive. This scene does look a bit weird though. You wouldn't just have the windows of the room open so everyone could see the patient lying dead there. That's a bit mad. So there you have it, another brilliant episode of Scrubs. I am loving this show more and more. I mean, I've been loving the Fake Doctors, Real Friends podcast, and I think I've said this before on the channel, I wasn't a huge fan of Scrubs before. I didn't quite get it, but it's the only medical show that once I become a doctor, looking back, I could see so much more, and it's so well written, so well researched. So I hope you enjoyed my look at this episode. Thanks again for all the support on the channel. If there's any other shows you want me to look at, any other episodes of Scrubs you want me to look at, then all you need to do is leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. I hope you're all well, and I'll see you soon.